I figure a tanker knows more about tanks than anybody else. We know where they're strong. And brother, they are strong. But we know where they're weak, too. That's what I think you guys ought to know about. Even if I do give away some trade secrets.
M1 rolling up on you.
M1 rolling up on you.
Marine Corps tanker, nothing you can do.
Marine Corps tanker, nothing you can do.
Never one tank, always poor.
Never one tank, always poor.
Fire-breathing dragon knocking on your door.
Fire-breathing dragon knocking on your door.
Hey everyone, it's me Matt, hope you're having a great day. So as you can see by the rather long-winded intro, we are talking about the United States Marine Corps tank battalions. And unfortunately guys, I do have some bad news to bring to you today. If you're not already aware, it has been posted by some pretty major military sources. But unfortunately, the decision has been made by the United States Marine Corps to disband their tank battalions. Yes, the Marine Corps will no longer be using the M1 Abrams, which is a little disheartening. It's really sad to hear and to know of. I do know tankers from the Corps personally, both serving and veteran, who I'm sure this is hitting them maybe pretty hard. But this isn't the only change in the Corps right now. The Marines are getting a lot of different changes happening, including part of their infantry is being re-rolled and restructured as well. So it's not just the tanks that are getting hit pretty hard, but what is quite heavy hitting to me is the fact of the tradition and the history that the Corps has had with the M1 Abrams and tanks in general. You know, a lot of people, when they think of the United States Marine Corps, they believe them to just be Marines as in infantry. I know as a British soldier, a lot of my, beginning part of my career, I wasn't really aware that they had specific branches in the Corps for each trade branch, whether it be tanks, helicopters, etc. But they do, and a lot of you maybe weren't even aware that the Marines operated Abrams, and it was just the US Army that used Abrams. Well, that's not the case. The Marine Corps have used the Abrams for quite some time in its own designation as the M1A1. It's obviously missing some of the more high-tech ancillaries that the M1A2 and M1A2 SEP has, but it's still a formidable fighting force, and the Marines have served alongside the Abrams for quite some time, and As I said, to me, it's just really disheartening to hear this news. Budget cuts is always on the table, I guess. You just hear more and more of it nowadays with, financial restraints and restructuring, re-rolling. But out of all the restructuring and re-rolling and budget cuts that I would ever have thought would happen, taking the Abrams from the Marine Corps was definitely not one that I was thinking of. So the tank battalions and bridging companies are being taken to create a lighter and faster force to fight across the Pacific, apparently to potentially confront in a rising China campaign. As part of the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General David Berger's plan was to redesign the force to confront China and other peer adversaries by 2030. The Marines are axing all 3 of its tank battalions and chucking out all law enforcement battalions and bridging companies, according to a new release from the Marine Corps Combat Development Command. The Corps is also cutting a number of grunt infantry battalions from 24 to 21. They're also reducing artillery batteries from 21 to 5 and amphibious vehicle companies from 6 to 4, according to this release. And unfortunately, the aviation flyboys aren't getting away with it either. They are also going to take a hit, with the Marines planning to cut back on the MV-22 Osprey attack and heavy lift squadrons. The Marines also plan to reduce the number of primary authorized F-35B and F-35C 5th generation stealth fighters per squadron from 16 to 10, according to the MCCDC. The Corps says overall it expects a reduction of 12,000 personnel across the force over the next 10 years. It's unknown how the cuts to the number of infantry battalions will impact the Corps' experimentation with the 12 Marine and 15 Marine Rifle Squad configurations that have been discussed in the past also. The 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, or MEU, was the first Marine unit to deploy and experiment with the 15 Marine Squad model, but the Corps says it wants its future infantry smaller. The infantry battalions will be smaller to support naval expeditionary warfare and designed to support a fighting concept known as Expeditionary Advanced Based Operations, which will see Marines decentralized and distributed across the Pacific on islands or floating barge bases. According to the sources from Wall Street Journal, and take that as you want, the changes are expected to take place over the next 10 years. As the Corps tries its best to get rid of legacy equipment and units, the Marines say they plan to invest in long-range precision-fire weapons, reconnaissance and unmanned systems. The Corps wants to double the number of unmanned squadrons and the lethal unmanned air-to-ground systems, enhancing the ability to sense and strike. The Marine Corps is not optimized to meet the demands of the National Defense Strategy, the Corps said in a news release. Their force design initiatives are designed to create and maintain a competitive edge against the tireless and continuous changing peer adversaries. The Marine says it wants 300% increase in rocket artillery capacity with anti-ship missiles. Surprisingly, the Corps is eyeing a remotely operated rocket artillery HIMARS launcher that uses the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle paired with a naval strike missile to sink ships at sea. So there you have it, quite a restructuring, quite a change to what we normally think of the US Marine Corps, in my personal opinion. Normally I think of, the Marines landing on beachheads with hundreds of labs and Abrams and, all that sort of stuff, but tactics and doctrine are changing. The way in which we fight battles is changing drastically, especially looking at the Eastern world, when we look at, South China Sea and all the sort of naval conflicts that could be involved in. But I still am very concerned to know that the Abrams is leaving the Corps. I'd like to know what's going to happen to their 3 tank battalions and the number of tanks they have inside of them. That's a lot of tanks to just all of a sudden restructure to somewhere else. I'm presuming they're either going to get mothballed or they're going to get restructured and sent over to the US Army. Maybe they're going to get given as a training program vehicle. I don't know. If they upgrade them to M1A2 versions, that'll be very interesting and surely a massive cost. I would be very surprised if the Marine Corps reduce their numbers of tanks and the US Army increase. But you got to think that if the US Marine Corps is taking away the Abrams and their armored fighting force, or the tip of the spear with their tanks, that's got to be picked up somewhere. That's a huge fighting force that has been removed and replaced with, this high-tech system that the Marine Corps is looking for. And fair play, I understand that we're, trying to look at a new modern force, but that's a massive armored force that cannot be utilized anymore on the battlefield. Maybe they'll have sort of the mothball vehicles that they can pull up at any instance, but if the Corps isn't training tankers, then their skills and their trades have to be re-rolled somewhere else too. So I'm also really concerned about what these Marines are going to do who are tankers. Are they going to get pushed into different trade groups that are nothing relevant to being a tanker? You got to remember, this is people's jobs. When you joined the Corps and you wanted to be a tanker, your brothers, your fathers, your uncles, whoever it was who were driving these vehicles, operating these vehicles, fighting in these vehicles, that was your passion, that's all you wanted to do, and now you cannot do it. That's a bitter pill to swallow. I think this is pretty serious. I think maybe a lot of you maybe not thinking how serious this is. But to me, it's serious because I know what it was like when I was younger to want to operate an armored fighting vehicle and how passionate I was about it. And I know how passionate Marines are about being a part of the Corps and serving their country and being a part of the tank companies and tank battalions. So, it's going to be hard hitting, I think, for a lot of tankers. I don't know how the restructuring is going to work, if it's going to be a phased program, if it's going to be kind of cold turkey and they're just going to chop everything at one time. I doubt they're going to do that. They're going to need to restructure and re-roll where these Marines are going to go and what they're going to do. I'm sure they'll figure something out for them. They'll have a new vehicle, a new technicality that they can push them into, but very, very disheartening. Sad to hear that the Marine Corps tanker may no longer be a thing. I don't think we're going to lose the tank, trade in the Marine Corps forever and ever. I'm sure it will at one point in the future maybe come back, but maybe it won't. Maybe this is the last time we'll ever see Marines rolling around in Abrams or any kind of main battle tank. I hope that's not the case. So yeah, some pretty disheartening news today, folks. Sorry to kind of bring you down a little bit, but everybody's been asking me to talk about it, so I thought I'd mention it to you today. If you did enjoy today's video, which I'm sure most of you didn't because it's not exactly the greatest news in the world, but if you were enjoying being informed of it, please leave me a like and a comment. I'd love to hear your opinion on this whole restructuring and what you think is going to happen with the Corps. If you are a serving tanker or a serving US Marine, big shout out and respect to you. Appreciate each and every one of you and what you do. I serve alongside you guys in Afghanistan, Helmand Province, from Fort Edinburgh and Camp Bootneck. So you guys did a fantastic job with me. I think it was actually Camp Leatherneck. I can't remember which one it was, but you guys are in FOB Edinburgh and Camp Bastion with me, so we had a blast with you guys. It was an absolutely fantastic time. So Semper Fidelis, thank you so much for what you do, and I really do hope that this restructuring doesn't affect you and your lifestyle too much in what you do as a tanker. If you did enjoy the video, folks, as well, please hit the little bell by the subscribe button so you can be notified of any upcoming content in the future. And I will see you next time. All the best. Bye-bye.